right, good afternoon, everybody. The time is 5:30 on Tuesday, June the 18th. We'll now open the special called meeting to order. Will the city secretary please call roll?
Mitchell. Rizzo.
Present.
Heiser.
Here.
Zuniga.
Present.
Harris.
Here.
Parsley. Tobias.
I'm here.
All right, we've got 6 members present. We have a quorum. At this time, we open up citizen comment period. Citizens' comments, anyone in the audience wishes to come forward to speak on any item, please do so. We also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, that you direct those comments at the mayor and council. Finally, we ask that you fill out a citizen's comment form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. Is there anyone present wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will now close the citizens' comment period. All right. City Council will now go into executive session to discuss items 1A through F and H pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.0.071, 551.072, and 551.087. City Council is not discussing agenda item G. Thank you. We're now in executive session. All right, this time we are going to reconvene for our special meeting. There was no action taken in executive session. Motion to adjourn? So moved. We are adjourned. Sounds good. All right. The time is 7:01. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today for our regularly scheduled city council meeting. If everybody would stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, City Secretary, please take roll.
Mitchell.
Here.
Rizzo,
Present.
Heiser.
Here.
Zuniga,
Present.
Harris,
Here.
Parsley, Tobias.
Here.
Now with approval of the minutes.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to consider approval of the city council minutes for June the 4th special meetings, and also the same day for the regular meetings on June the 4th and on June the 8th special meeting minutes.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tobias, second by Councilmember Heiser. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. 6-0. All right. At this time, we'll now open our citizens' comment period. Anyone in the audience wishing to come forward and speak on any item, please do so. As we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and that you direct your comments to the mayor and council. Finally, we ask that you fill out a citizens' comment form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. Citizens' comment period is now open. First up to speak is Josh Keller.
Good evening, Council. My name is Josh Keller. I've served as the Kyle Trails Committee Chairperson for the past year. Tonight, I'd just like to share 2 positives, 2 opportunities to improve, some observations I've made from the past year, and then finally make 2 requests. As far as the Trails Committee, 2 positives. This past year, we had amazing members. The people on the committee, their priority was to serve the community, and that's why they were there. It was a great experience. During the past year, we evaluated our Plum Creek Trail east of 35, advised the city on appropriate use of funds on a variety of trail amenities, and we're currently in the process of acquiring those amenities. 2 opportunities to improve. It took some time to learn our duties and to adjust to changes in leadership. We had a narrow scope and wanted to discuss improvements that went beyond amenities. Some observations from the past year. 1 year ago, I rarely saw other people out on the trail. I was out this past Saturday for about 90 minutes, and I saw over a dozen people out on the trail. I'm excited about this. I think this is the new norm. Our Kyle Trail Committee Kyle Trail Coalition Facebook page has grown from 200 to over 550 in the past year. We've also partnered with the city to host our second Kids on Bikes and Parks, where we gave away bikes, we gave away gifts, and we gave free riding lessons. We have a lot of momentum. I think that is directly due to the city's support, specifically the involvement of Stacey Anderson. She's been amazing in every way. She brings a lot of energy, she brings a lot of experience, and she's really helped us get things moving in the right direction. So my 2 requests, one is simply more resources for Stacey Anderson, and second concerns the Trail Committee. In the past year, the Trail Committee was given a very narrow scope. The Trail community hasn't been given much land to work with other than floodplain. We've done well with what we've been given. If that sentiment is shared, we're asking for more responsibility, and that starts with the Trails Committee. So my request tonight is to continue our Trails Committee and broaden our scope and responsibilities to connecting our trails from east to west, incorporate nature trails into the Vibe Trail, bring the community alongside the city trails crew to build fun, sustainable trails for everyone, to try to acquire land that's not in a floodplain, and to bring experts that want to share their knowledge of trail design. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Diane Herval.
My name is Diane Herval, and I live at 1528 Amberwood Loop. And I come before you tonight because I want to speak in regards to 2 items on the agenda and then a couple items that are not on the agenda. I'm a little shocked in regards to item number 16 being on there when you guys haven't even have bond approval. Why would you spend or expend money right now when you don't even have bond approval for the indoor sportsplex yet? And then secondly, on number 15, I would really like to hear from one of you ask the question if we're going to get any kind of refund in regards to terminating that contract early, or was there a termination clause that we would have to pay the full amount out? And then also in regards to the sportsplex, I am amazed at your discussion on the Saturday meeting. I think it was not this Saturday, maybe the Saturday before, in regards to utilizing the last bonding capacity that this city has to build a sportsplex, which in my opinion is not a need right now. It's a want. And people all over this city will tell you time and time again, what is it that you really need? I need infrastructure. I need roads. I need mobility. And so I was a little shocked at y'all's discussion at that meeting, and that you're willing to, at some point, that will be on an agenda, consider approving that last amount of bonding approval. And then, in addition to that, we've got tropical storms, one coming in pretty soon. And what happens if we have an emergency? Where will you help your citizens? Where will you get the financial strength to do that? And then, in addition, I would like to speak quickly on defeasance. Y'all talked about defeasance at that Saturday meeting as well, and I didn't get to finish my comments, but I'm a little lost at our bonding professionals who did not go into depth as to the ramifications that I feel that you will experience in the event that you pay off debt early and then borrow debt, because you're paying off early at a cheaper rate, but you gained some bonding capacity at a higher rate. Where's the savings? He never went into that. I would like to see that. And then lastly, in light of the recent developments, I want to remind each of you that you have a duty to the citizens of Kyle to report any unethical behavior of your peers immediately. Not doing so also makes you lose the trust of your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Stephanie McDonald.
Good evening, members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I stand here today restating once again, as I did 2 months ago, that I'm disappointed by the lack of accountability and transparency I've seen in the City of Kyle's governance. I'm speaking to the members of council as well as the city manager and city leadership. I'm not speaking to each council member. The citizens of Kyle know which members of council truly have the city and the citizens' interests at the forefront of their decisions and votes. When are you going to hear us? When will things change? Start handling the city's business in an ethical and transparent manner. We are watching. Standards and values are important, especially in leadership. Please do not ignore this. Perhaps it's time for the city to budget for a position of a city auditor. It would bring more truth, transparency, and trust between the citizens and the city. It would be a place of safety for city whistleblowers that want to do the right thing. If you have a problem with this, perhaps you should evaluate why. It would be money better spent than spending money on acquiring real estate, building roundabouts with utilities and art installations, and planning water features such as kayaking venues, all while we're so behind in basic infrastructure. I don't understand the recent trip to Carmel to view roundabouts. 2 previous trips have been made, each time costing the city thousands and thousands of dollars on flights, hotels, and meals. Why was it necessary for 10 people to attend? 5 members of council and 5 city employees. This after the DC trip this spring, as well as the Las Vegas trip this summer, now Carmel, and I'm sure I'm leaving out 1 or 2 other trips. What is next? Our city charter calls this a manager-council-run city. Council was never meant to be a position of day-to-day oversight. That's why we pay our city manager hundreds of thousands of dollars. Quality leadership requires a high standard of integrity and transparency. This was lacking at the vote that went around the charter to force citizens to pay for your health insurance. Let me restate, no one is against any member of council having health insurance. We have a problem paying for it, most especially when you have access to it by other means. It's budget time again, a good time to reevaluate the amount of spending the council is budgeting for themselves. Also, why do we need a $500 expense stipend as well as having a city credit card? Please stop downplaying the severity of our water shortage and what you will be asking the citizens to pay for. I believe it's going to cost about $100 million to fix the water situation. I'm also once again asking for a moratorium on building. It may not be a total moratorium, but please consider this. It needs to be done until you're able to provide the basics for the current residents of our city. It's very sad to see what's happening. Kyle is such a wonderful location. Quality of life here is being affected by your decisions and will be for years to come. You've repeatedly ignored the citizens. It's time to end that trend. Please normalize listening to residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Yvonne Kell.
All right, thank you. Dear members of council, my name is Yvonne Flores-Kell, and I am a resident of Kyle. I'm not here to discuss any item on the agenda, as I, along with so many others, feel the wants and needs of the residents often fall on deaf ears. Hundreds, if not thousands, have begged for no more housing to protect the resources for those already here, and yet, after not passing a 3-3 the first time, Project Two-Step was brought back and passed 7-0 at the last council meeting. What is it going to take for you to hear us? Instead, I stand here today to plead with this council to take a strong moral stand in your leadership in our city. The residents of Kyle deserve elected officials who will lead with courage and integrity, not just follow the path of least resistance. Too often we see our elected city council members who are more concerned with politically motivated choices rather than doing what is truly right for the people. This needs to change. We need a dais filled with leaders who are willing to make difficult decisions, even when they are unfavorable and unpopular. Leaders who put the greater good of the Kyle community above their own personal interests or political agendas. And it's not just the council that needs to step up. Our city management must start doing the right thing. Too many times we've seen city staff prioritize bureaucracy over serving the public. This needs to end. Our city managers and department heads need to show real integrity and leadership, take initiative, and do whatever it takes to address the pressing issues facing our Kyle community. The people of this city deserve nothing less than elected and appointed officials who will lead with a strong moral compass. We need a city government that is truly representative of the values and needs of the community. I urge each of you to reflect on this sacred duty you have been entrusted with and choose to be the kind of leader our city so desperately needs. As I have previously mentioned, sitting in this very room, you will never go wrong by doing what's right. I leave you with this, the words of Teddy Roosevelt. In any moment of decision, the best thing you could do is the right thing. The worst thing you can do is nothing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, I'm going to mess this up because it's kind of ruined. It's Ellen Ermis. Is that right? Okay. It's kind of mixed.
Thank you. I'm a resident here in Kyle. I work for the Kyle Area Senior Zone on their board and also on the Parks and Recreation Board. We wanted to announce to everyone that tomorrow morning we're having a flag raising and Juneteenth celebration just over here at Mary Hartson Kyle Park, City Square Park. Also, I wanted to address that you are approving the Community Development Block Grant, 5-year consolidated plan. And I didn't think that the word block meant block senior input, but that's what happened with the planning department. I made several attempts to get input from seniors and I was really treated rudely. So go ahead and approve the plan. I'm sure it will serve citizens in some way, but I did need to complain about the lack of input from seniors on the Community Development Block Grant because the past administration had promised seniors that money for years. We heard, oh, once we get the block grants, that will go to senior programming. But thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Vanessa Westbrook.
Well, good evening, everyone. Tomorrow is a special day. It is an American holiday. It is a federal holiday. It is Juneteenth. Many of us are off because we have this federal holiday, and I hope we take the opportunity to actually learn a little bit more about it, participate in it, and enjoy it because it is a holiday for all of the community. You may be wondering my attire. This is a Civil War outfit, and I am in honor of my ancestor, Fannie Boyd, who was in Galveston. as I am a BOI born in Galveston. Please take the opportunity to enjoy our holiday tomorrow. And while I have you on the line, last Thursday, Councilman Zuniga and I, thank you so much, Dr. Zuniga, did the annual Peace and Progress. I went back and looked at all of the paddles and all of the paraphernalia that I've had for Peace and Progress, and I found this one. Well, actually, it's on my wall. I didn't really find it. It says, this is to commemorate the inaugural Dialogue for Peace and Progress event held on June 19th, 2020. So it was during the time of MLK celebration. The City of Kyle wants to thank panelists for their participation and willingness to speak up. The moderator was Councilmember Dex Ellison, Mayor Travis Mitchell, Chief of Police Jeff Barnett, Chief Kyle Police Department Chaplain Marquette Curl, President of the Law Enforcement Association for Kyle Philip Cleary, Keto Academy of Etho-Cultural Performance, Keo St. James, founder and president of the Cultural Awareness, Laura McHarmon, J.P. Morgan Private Client Advisor, Ben Wimpy, Wake Up Committee and former teacher, Winston Dean, Director of Marketing at Brain Juice, Richard Robertson, Hayes County Historical Commission, and former Executive Director of the Calaboose African American History Museum, Vanessa Westbrook, Marine Veteran and Managing Principal, who was Bill Summett, father of four and editor of In-Store Magazine, Trace Nelson, Gladys Carnero and Mahia Santos of Mothers for Black Lives, current General Counsel Bud Whitmore, and Ruben Castaneda, who works with juvenile children in the Travis County Commission system. All of these people came together to talk about what was going on, to talk about the idea of what happens in our city. Basically, they were speaking up. So with that in mind, let us consider that future Peace and Progress, if that is the case, does have to have someone who knows about the topic, contrary to what was said. It does have to have citizens from across the board being able to come together and talk. And it does have to be a place of safe space where you can say what you feel about those questions that were thoughtfully written and researched. With that, I say Juneteenth to everybody in the room, and it is proper for the next few days to walk around and say, Happy Juneteenth, Happy Juneteenth, Happy Juneteenth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Westbrook. Okay. At this time, we'll close. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll now close citizens' comment. Citizens' comment period is now closed. Okay. Agenda order. Do we have anyone that wants to pull something on the agenda? Seeing not, we'll close agenda order. Okay, reports and presentations. Proclamation for Juneteenth. Councilmember Zuniga.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Robert Rizzo. It's an honor for me to read this proclamation, and thank you, Vanessa Westbrook, for sending it over so us to review. And then I have a few things to say after the proclamation, okay? So, whereas the institution of slavery in America began in 1619 with the landing of the first African slaves on our shores, and the continuation of the cruel, inhuman practice lasting until President Abraham Lincoln officially issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January the 1st, 1863, and whereas although this historic proclamation was issued in 1863, Texas slaves received word of liberation 2.5 years later on June 19, 1865, after Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger landed on Galveston Island and announced that all Texas slaves were free. And whereas the 19th day of June, or Juneteenth, became a day of jubilation and liberation for Texas slaves, and today is the oldest known celebration of the ending of slavery in our nation. Juneteenth commemorates African American freedom and achievement while emphasizing education of the holiday for all citizens. It is a day, a week, a month marked with celebrations, presentations, picnics, and family gatherings. It is a time for reflection and rejoicing. It is a time for assessment, self-improvement, and for planning the future. In cities across the country, people of all cultures, nationalities, and religions are joining hands to truthfully acknowledge a period in our history that shaped and continues to influence our society today. Sensitized to the conditions and experiences of others, only then can we make significant and lasting improvements in our society. And whereas on June 13, 1979, Governor William P. Clemens signed a bill into law that made the Juneteenth Emancipation Day an official state holiday in Texas. And on June 17, 2021, President Joe Biden signed into law S. 475, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, which designates Juneteenth National Independence Day as a legal public holiday. And whereas the City of Kyle provides opportunities to reflect and rejoice to celebrate Juneteenth throughout the month of June with the variety of activities and events, now therefore be it proclaimed that the City of Kyle does hereby recognize the celebration day, Wednesday, June 19, 2024, as Juneteenth, a Jubilee celebration. So last Thursday, I was a moderator for the Dialogue for Peace and Progress. It was an amazing and wonderful opportunity event. We had a great group of all-female panelists. We had wonderful presentations, dances, speakers, and even the Lehman High School Choir share with us great songs, very inspirational songs. It was a great community event, and I was joined by Dr. Vanessa Westbrook as my co-moderator. Thank you for doing that with me. The evening was educational, impactful, and full of appreciation for the historical significance of Juneteenth and for the goal for our future to progress and to continue building social progress and learning how we can come together and learn from our diverse culture and history and continue to build a stronger American democracy. So that's why Juneteenth is a very important American holiday for all of us. And I just wanted to say those words. And City of Kyle, Kaz tomorrow is going to have, I did finish. Okay, several activities or happenings have been scheduled across the city and county at public parks, local churches, neighborhoods, public spaces, and family-friendly events. The City of Kyle calls upon the citizens locally and beyond to join together in honor of this significant date to recognize the importance of Juneteenth to human freedom so cherished by the people of the United States, signed and entered this 18th day of June 2024. And getting back, Kaz is going to have a Faith and Freedom event where the mission is going to be to educate about the history and importance of Juneteenth, to teach about the symbolism with the flag, and celebrate as a community. So if you're able to, weather depending, please come out and join us for the flag here at the Krug building from 10:30 to 1 p.m. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. If anybody else have another comment? Anybody else? Laura Lee?
If the weather is bad, which it probably will be, the event will be held inside the Krug Center.
Just anyone else? Hey, I'd just like to say that, this is a great proclamation. We always think about people when we think of days like this. Let's not take away from the importance of the day. It's not just about going out and barbecuing or having fun or having a day off. It's about the importance of the sacrifices of everyone that made on this day, to bring us where we are. Growing up here in Kyle, I still saw pockets of it where we were segregated. This was the community over here for the Hispanics. These were for the blacks. This was the community for the whites. The cemeteries were segregated as well. So I got to see a small glimpse of it in Kyle, not as much as probably the early, our grandfathers did, but I got to see some of it. I remember going to school and having, to relearn and unlearn my language. So that was some of the things that I went through. But as we move forward as a city, we've grown and we've gotten better, and we've learned to love and respect one another. And one of the things that's always resonated with me is something Martin Luther King said, and this always rings true today and every day. It says, returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Dr. Martin Luther King. We've definitely got to practice love and respect for everyone, no matter who they are. Always remember, as a community, what keeps Kyle a wonderful and beautiful place to live, and that's the respect and the love to everyone. Thank you. At this time, you want to take a picture?
Yes. Anybody is welcome to come up front, right, and take a photo with us.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to join up front for council photo.
Do you want us to sit in the back?
Let's see how many people are coming up, and then if we get enough people.
We got some.
Come on up, please. Don't be shy. Come on up,
Gotta usher them. Would y'all like to hold that? Yeah, down there. Miss Vanessa, would you like to hold it?
In the center.
All right, and y'all are gonna have to get close like y'all like each other so I can get everyone in the photo. We might need some people to stand in the front. I can't get everyone on the sides if y'all are all fanned out. All right, we might need to get some people to bunch up and stand in front of each other. So if you're a little shorter, come to the front, and if you're a little taller, maybe go to the back. Someone switch with Ruben. That works. All right. Can we get started just a little bit more on this? All right, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, I got quite a few. All right, thank y'all so much.
Happy Juneteenth. Vanessa, you're welcome to have the proclamation. Okay. We can give it to her. Thank you. Thank you. You want me to stay? No, I'll be low.
Okay, moving on. Item number 4, consent agenda. Anybody wanting to pull anything?
Sure.
Yes, Councilmember Tobias?
Could we just have some explanations on consent agenda item number 4 and number 9, please? Especially for those on number 9 for the employees.
Anyone else?
Number 7, just a question about it.
Okay. All right. I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items number 5, 6, 8, 10, and 11. So moved. Motion by the mayor, second by Councilmember Heiser. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, consent agenda number 4. Consider the approval resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant Program 5-year Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2024. Kayla.
Good evening,
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner for the record. So we have recently become an entitlement community with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and will begin receiving funding annually through the Community Development Block Grant Program. We are slated to receive approximately $266,000 for fiscal year 2024, beginning October 1 of this year. As part of this process, we've conducted a needs assessment survey and have identified some of the top needs for the city based on that survey. This is kind of the phases we went through to get to where we are. We are in phase 4 right now. And then based on that needs assessment survey, these were the top needs that were identified. The top one being construction of sidewalks, natural trails, multimodal trails, and also new construction or reconstruction of roads. Those were the top two, but as you can see, all of these were fairly highly ranked. So we did have, once we had the draft consolidated plan and annual action plan, we held 2 public comment periods in April and then again May and June. And so yeah, we are here at the end of this process for the consolidated plan and the annual action plan. If this is approved tonight, our consultants will submit the consolidated plan and annual action plan to HUD. And then we'll kind of go through the review process with them. So there's still a little bit of back and forth that we anticipate with HUD just to make sure we're following all of the federal guidelines for this program. Yeah, any questions?
Councilmember Tobias?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I was looking at this item. So you're saying that we are granted or we have been approved or a grant for $266,000, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what would be some of that funding be used for? Because I know that, of course, we actually went to a open house for sidewalks recently at Lehman and also down here at City Hall. And then also, we were talking about our roads and for our infrastructure. How would some of that money be utilized? What would that $266,000 grant be utilized for the city?
So for our first year annual action plan, we've identified a couple segments of sidewalks that either need to be constructed or repaired. And so that money has been identified to cover all of the costs associated with that. We can use the money for the engineering and construction of those sidewalks. I'm sure some of them might also have some drainage infrastructure that will probably need to go in as well in order to install those sidewalks.
Okay.
So that's what we've identified based on the needs assessment survey as kind of our spending for the first year of the program.
Okay, so if we get that money in, would that be something that we could add into our budget, or that's gonna be part of our budget to where then we can identify with that money that's coming in, which sidewalks, how will we go about identifying which sidewalks would be utilized for this grant money, along with other bonding or other budget coming up, as we've got budget season coming up? How will we be able to use that?
So the annual action plan has already identified 2 specific segments. We coordinated with our Public Works Department as they've been working through this sidewalk master plan. They've done basically a study on the conditions of sidewalks and where we have gaps and things like that. So based on that, we've identified 2 segments of sidewalks that are eligible for funding through the Community Development Block Grant. There is a requirement with this funding that a certain amount of it be spent in low to moderate income areas. And so that is another constraint on where the money can be utilized. So there were 2 segments out of a list of 20-something that we were provided from Public Works that met the threshold for this.
Would the downtown area be considered or be one of those areas? Let's say some of the older neighborhoods over here by Kyle Elementary School or on Nance or something like that. The downtown area, would that be a specific area that could be identified as that?
Potentially, yes. The 2 segments for the first year are not in the downtown area. There was one that was identified. However, it is on one of the road bond projects.
Okay.
So that segment would already be getting sidewalk improvements or installation of new sidewalks. So that was removed from the annual action plan because we already have that funding allocated for that segment. But in the future, yes, it's definitely possible that some areas in downtown could utilize CDBG funding.
And then one last final follow-up question. Could we reapply for this again next year and get it? Is this going to be an ongoing, or do we have to, let's say we use this and we got the money now, if we apply for it next year, will we be disqualified because we've already received some funding? Or could this be an ongoing additional funding that we can utilize and say, I know we're budgeting for sidewalks, I know we're using bonding money, but this could be that extra leverage that we use going forward that we could be able to apply for every year and then do segments of sidewalks, starting like with downtown and then building our way out.
Yes, so this program does continue every year.
Okay.
So we will receive funding every year. And typically the allocation goes up a little bit every year. It's based on population and some other factors. But yes, we can definitely, we'll have to do another annual action plan every year. And then this consolidated plan is every 5 years. So with this 5-year consolidated plan, we've identified those top 10 needs. So that will be the focus for the next, 5 or so years. But each year we will update an annual action plan to identify what we'll be spending our allocation on for the coming year.
Great, at least that's a start for our sidewalks, funding for that, since we went to that open house and now we can pay for some of that.
Yes, sir, and we're also going to be including in the budget some annual funding for sidewalks as well. That'll be a cash funding out of the general fund. It's very expensive, honestly, to put in some of these, so it doesn't go as far as we might hope it would, but we'll be allocating some funds for that too. So you'll have not only some CDBG funds every year, but also some additional dollars in the budget.
Okay, that's good.
To implement that plan.
Question?
Dr. Harris?
So it's my understanding that we will do an annual plan on this every year. So in the successive years, we may or may not allocate all of that to sidewalks.
Correct.
We may, but we're not bound to that.
Correct. So we are bound to what is in the 5-year consolidated plan, which had those, top 10 identified needs, which, as we all know, a lot of those are infrastructure projects, and those are all kind of high-dollar items. But we would, in the future, have some flexibility to maybe allocate some of those fundings to separate projects within those top needs.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Motions?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem, to approve agenda item number 4, to consider the 5-year consolidation plan, action plan for the block grant program.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tobias and a second by Dr. Harris, Councilmember Harris. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Okay, 4-0. Consent agenda item 7, consider approval of a resolution authorizing an agreement regarding governance, restaurants, hotels, and office city properties for the retail properties conveyed to the city as part of the development in the brick and mortar district. Presenter is Page Signs.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Page Signs from the Knight Law Firm. This agenda item is related to the city's agreements related to a project called the Retail Roads Project. The city's a party to the infrastructure and property conveyance agreement for the brick and mortar district with the Plum Development Partners and the Mountain Plum, I'll call them declarants, that was approved last year. In that agreement, the declarants, those property owners, agreed to convey certain properties to the city for use as a hotel convention center, a restaurant, and an office building. There was also an agreement to convey a soccer parcel to the city, and that has occurred. The agreement provides for the declarants to convey the property to the city within 30 days after the city gives notice that they have issued the notice to proceed on the transportation improvements or the retail roads project that is currently has initiated within the brick and mortar district. These properties are part of a master planned development, and they're subject to certain restrictive covenants. The infrastructure agreement contemplates that these properties are going to be governed by the mixed-use master declaration, so there needs to be some change from one of the restrictive covenant governance documents to another. In addition to that, the underlying infrastructure agreement provides that the properties will be subject to certain restrictive covenants to ensure quality development and construction of the project in a manner that's consistent with the rest of the development of the brick and mortar district. Because recall, the city, once it has received conveyance of these properties, the city may ultimately convey to a third party or ground lease to a third party for construction, operation, maintenance of these specific projects, be it a restaurant or an office or a hotel. The attached agreement addresses the city and the declarant cooperating to provide that the properties that aren't just governed by those mixed-use master declarations to become subject to those, to provide that certain property-specific declarations for each tract will be recorded closer in time to when the property is either conveyed or ground leased to the third party, and addresses timing of assessments to be levied on the properties after the commercial uses begin. So just a little bit more detail on that for you, because the development of those properties is ultimately pending. You'll have more information about what's proposed to go on those properties and who your development partner may be closer in time to when the properties are conveyed. And so at that time, what you have in front of you, you're approving an agreement that says at the time that we're getting ready to convey that property to third party or develop it or ground lease it, we'll finalize these restrictive covenants and get them on the property. And because that way, once you record restrictive covenants, they're very hard to change. So we are going to wait until you have more information about what those projects will be. And at that time, you'll have your development partner at the table, and you can make sure those restrictive covenants don't interfere with what's proposed to be developed and your financing structure or your incentive structure for it if you're incentivizing or participating in any financing. So the other important thing that these documents do is that when the city holds the property before it is conveyed to a third party or in use for those commercial uses, the assessments will be delayed. The city will not be subject to these assessments being levied until such time that the property is either conveyed to the third party, so the third party is subject to the assessments, or if the city is ground leasing the property, it's subject to the third party is subject to those assessments, and those assessments would begin after the use begins.
Thank you, Paige. Yeah, it's a good summary, and that's sort of what I was thinking. I just wasn't sure what is the benefit to the city after the hotel is built and the restaurant part. I can understand the city office is there, but how does the city continue to get a benefit in those other two covenants of, if that's what they're dedicated for? Because
Yes.
city owns the land, but obviously maybe some developer would build a hotel or a restaurant, but where does the city continue to get a benefit out of that
So
after
yeah.
the land is developed on?
So for all three, I think the answer for all three is the same, depending on how you structure it. For example, the restaurant, that property, once it converts to a private use, you have property tax and sales tax benefit to the city. So that'll be generating sales tax and property tax revenue that the city receives. You holding it as a property, then you have the ability to use that as an incentive to draw a good restaurant tenant into that parcel. Just like you have your restaurant program where you provide incentives to certain qualifying restaurants. This is kind of an incentive on steroids, so to speak, because you own the property, so that's part of your incentive package, whether you want to lease it or whether you want to convey it.
So the city will always own that good piece of retail, I guess the land part?
That is your decision. You know, you're getting these properties now because we're fulfilling the terms of this
Right.
agreement that you're going to receive these properties. And the purpose of these documents is to, again, delay those assessments until those uses begin, but not get in the way of how you might want to structure that. You may want to own it, you may want to convey it. It's going to be up to you to make that decision closer in time to when you are actively going to develop and recruiting somebody to be on that property.
So what's the timeline of something like this being developed on, the hotel and the restaurant part?
I'm not aware of timing. We're just getting the property conveyed to you because then that gives you the ability to begin your planning and to go towards that.
Brian?
Fulfill that goal.
I mean, I understand the big overview, the big picture here. But
Right. Well, I think getting
what's
the retail
plan? Yeah.
yes, sir, getting the retail roads project off and running, which we approved the bids on that maybe 60 days ago. That project is commencing construction. Now that that is commencing construction, there's a chance to redevelop that site. We do have the Sprouts and some of the about 20,000 square feet of retail coming in. So as that project develops out, then there will be lots of opportunities to develop these sites. We're also, just earlier today, we approved a parking lot just south of La Verde, just south of, I believe, the office site that we have on this property. So that gives us another opportunity to develop it. So I don't have a specific timeline for you, but as those projects have matriculated forward, there's more opportunities to develop them. That's been the overall plan for the brick and mortar district.
Okay, yeah, I think I get a better understanding of this process for the conveyance of the parcels.
And here, the tenant is, if you own the property and you have a tenant, then again, the tenant's going to be, the city's never a member of the Property Owners Association. The tenant will become the member of the Property Owners Association because they're going to have assessments levied against them. And the developer is interested in making sure they can enforce their requirement to levy those assessments against the tenant, even when the tenant is not the property owner. So there's certain terms the city is required to put in its lease to guarantee that. The tenant is required to give the association the first right lien against their private property that's on the property, as well as the rents that they're paying. So those are just there's some guarantee, because the city could be this intervening owner or the owner of the property. Is just there's some challenges to the Property Owners Association making sure that the assessments are enforceable, and so that's what these documents are dealing with.
Do we have this arrangement anywhere else in City of Kyle?
You've already entered into a few transactions with this developer where they've conveyed land to you. The soccer parcel has been conveyed. You've had two properties conveyed to you, La Verde and Heroes Memorial Park. The Public Safety Center was conveyed under these agreements to you. And there's the Regional Detention Pond that was conveyed to you. So,
yeah. But those are all ours. I mean, we don't really have we don't have a commercial tenant.
No, you do not have a commercial tenant. Those are all pure public use. So this is it was planned a long time ago.
Right.
This idea was planned a long time ago. These agreements have been in effect since the original one was in 1997. There have been amendments over time, but this is the final culmination of the planning for the city to have these parcels in its hand, which can be used for commercial purposes.
I recall the Burleson was sort of like that. The Burleson Street was supposed to be something like this, where city owns the property and tenant builds it.
Yes, you hold the land, and you have the option for structuring it what it best serves the city.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, guys. I can approve this one. So,
Okay. Do you want to make the motion?
Well, I make a motion to approve agenda item 7.
Motion was made, Councilmember Zuniga, second by Councilmember Heiser. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. All right, number 9, consider resolution approving new and revised personal policies for the city of Kyle related to paid parental leave, education assistance, vacation, and sick leave, buyback, compulsory time, and exemption vacation. Presenter is Rosie Truliff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rosie Truliff, Director of Administrative Services. At our last meeting, I did a full presentation on this. I understand that Councilmember Tobias had a question. Happy to run through the presentation or just respond to any questions that you may have.
It's to just give a brief rundown of what if there's any personal policies that are being changed, in case we have some employees that are watching as well.
Sure.
They can have an update, 'cause that way it doesn't catch them off guard if there's changes to the policy or, approval. Just kind of gives them a rundown, especially because when you're dealing with paid leave, education assistance, obviously, and of course, very important, vacation and sick time buyback. So it would just give a brief overview for those people and also for the residents if they're curious.
Absolutely. So as I said, back at the June 4th council meeting, we introduced these policy changes. We have gone through a solid plan with our staff by forming a benefits committee that has representation from all across the city at all levels of the city to help provide feedback to the human resources staff and administrative services, and our city manager, Brian Langley, was at all those meetings with us. We got good feedback. We iterated on all of these policies and had good support from city employees as we are pulling these forward. We have 5 policy changes that are on the agenda today. Paid parental leave, a new paid parental leave program, a revised education assistance program, a new vacation and sick leave buyback program, some changes to our compensatory time accrual policy for exempt employees, and a new exception vacation policy for exempt employees. And as we have these drafted right now, our goal is to have these go into effect immediately. So as we talk about an implementation plan for these new policies, as I've mentioned, we had our employee benefits committee that we met with and shared these in draft form on numerous occasions. They went back and they talked to their friends and neighbors back in the office, and they brought us back good comments and good feedback, and we iterated several times on all these to get to the point that we're at today. We will be sharing information citywide, sharing information on the policies, the final policies, procedures, and forms as needed. We're starting our quarterly town hall meetings for all employees at the end of this week, actually. So if approved today, then this information will be in there for the employee town hall meetings. And then we are always open to follow up with any team members across the city of Kyle that might have questions or concerns as we go to implement these and make sure we get all of that information out there as thoroughly as we possibly can. So our new paid parental leave policy, in summary, is allowing, in accordance with FMLA, up to 12 weeks of paid parental leave for full-time employees with at least 12 months of service for the birth of a child or the placement of a child in the employee's home for fostering or adoption. Our goal here is to create a flexible and family-friendly policy which will cultivate an atmosphere where employees can thrive professionally without having to sacrifice essential family obligations. This new policy will help with recruitment and retention efforts and help the city of Kyle be a preferred employer in the area. And there are no additional funds or budgetary implications associated with this new policy. We are updating our education assistance program. We do have a tuition reimbursement program right now, but it has not kept pace with the rising cost of education. So here our goal is to provide reimbursement for full-time city employees for college courses for an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and PhD degree plans, or for courses relating to obtaining a GED, English as a second language course, or any vocational education certifications. Our goal here is to improve employee retention by showcasing professional development as a priority and to build our internal talent pipeline. This will have the added benefit of boosting employee satisfaction, productivity, innovation, and loyalty. We anticipate spending approximately $100,000 to $200,000 a year, depending on employee utilization. We can't forecast what this will be. We have heard our current tuition reimbursement is $500 annually, and that has not been something that employees have opted to take advantage of. We're hoping that by boosting that up to $4,000 annually per employee as something that's available to them, that we'll see more participation in these programs. There are criteria associated with this. You have to get your coursework approved ahead of time to ensure that it is applicable. We do have grade requirements. You have to pass the course, pass it in good standing to be able to receive reimbursement for it. And it is a reimbursement, not paid upfront. So you have to complete the class, get a satisfactory grade, and then the city will reimburse. Additionally, if we have employees that receive and go through this tuition reimbursement process and they choose to leave the city within a certain time frame, within the policy there are criteria for paying some of that amount back that we invested back in the employee. The vacation and sick leave buyback program. This is one that will provide an avenue for full-time employees to sell blocks of sick and vacation leave back to the city of Kyle on a biannual basis. We're anticipating these buyback periods to be in November and March of each year. Payment is based on the current employee salary level and is subject to established taxes and withholding requirements. Our goal here is to establish a program that will allow employees the option to convert their unused sick and vacation leave into extra income while reducing the city's overall financial liability. And while this will reduce the liability the city carries associated with the large balances of unused sick and vacation leave, will also allow employees to have a little bit more direct control over their leave balances. Again, the cost of this will be based on employee usage. I think at our presentation at the last month, at the last meeting, which I didn't include those slides here, we went into more detail on the liability and the effects of that over time. And I'm sure that our finance director is in the back and he could probably pull those numbers up off the top of our head if we need them, but I didn't include those today. We do have proposed some revisions to our comp time policy. In doing this, we are going to eliminate the accrual of comp time for exempt employees effective the pay period ending July 6, 2024. Exempt staff can choose to either receive a payout for hours earned in July, or they can use them and have the balance paid out at the end of the fiscal year with current rates. The reason why we are doing this is because we noticed that in analyzing the liabilities associated with our sick leave and our vacation leave that we're carrying, that we have some employees, especially exempt employees, have significant balances of sick and vacation because they earn comp time at a higher rate than our non-exempt employees are able to. So this will create some fairness in that way that isn't established right now. We also did some peer research here, and only one of our peer cities offers the ability to accrue compensatory time for exempt employees, so this will get us a little bit more in line with the market.
So if I could, so those, in a nutshell, it's for those people employees that have to work not so much overtime, but let's say during a storm or having to work in events or something like that, to where you're having to work that extra hours to provide still services for the city. It's being able to compensate them not only for the pay period, but it also, the more you work, you still earn your vacation and your sick time. And so it kind of helps balance that out on that end for those type of employees.
We are creating a new exception vacation policy to help cover those one-off instances that you talked about there. This is really, right now, the way we have the comp time policy working. If I, as an executive, am at a council meeting until 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night, then that might mean that I'm in the office for, instead of 40 hours a week, I'm in the office 45 hours a week. Yep. As I record those hours, I get banked 5 hours of comp time that I can use in a future pay period to take off and use it like vacation, yes, fundamentally. Okay. But our non-exempt employees don't have that same ability. They're paid overtime to accrue comp time, and it felt a little unbalanced in how we were seeing the balances. Yep. You know, we had our personnel policies say that you can only accrue a capped number of hours there, mm-hmm, but it still seemed a little out of balance when we looked at our entire cycle and system of how we compensate our employees. So this will create a little bit more balance there. And then when you pair it with the last policy change that's on the table today, it still allows us the opportunity to, when we have something like a winter storm or we have something like Kyle Fair, where we have an exceptional amount of draw on city staff to work above and beyond a normal workload, this policy would allow the city manager to designate it as an exception vacation earning event. And folks that are working above and beyond there would be able to earn up to 40 hours of exception vacation to be used in the future. And I think that is it. So, we would recommend approval of these policies as we've presented them. And there's a resolution associated with that, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions you guys may have.
Well, that's good to know on the and I'll just briefly add to the vacation and sick time buyback program, because in most companies in other government facilities or areas you work in, you may not have this because you can maybe buy back some of your vacation time up to a certain amount, but your sick time's gone. So, if you have 400 sick hours, you don't call in sick, you know what I'm saying? If you work for a county agency and you're taking your vacation, then this gives them the option to be able to year by year to sell that or buy it back if they've got a vacation coming up or they got kids' tuition. Trust me, I know about all that. You can be able
Yes,
to bank
indeed.
some of those sick hours and those vacation hours to be able to use that for, I think it's twice a year you can do
Yes.
this? Twice a year you can be able to budget out that way. And also the liability for the city, because of course, the more sick hours that are on the books, it becomes a big tax issue, I think, Progressive knows
Yes.
about all that.
And I should have said, and I apologize for running through these quickly. There are requirements associated with that program too. You have to maintain minimum balances, so you can't sell 100% of your vacation and sick hours. You have to maintain what we would consider a healthy leave balance. But we do see it as a benefit to our employees to provide them a way to tap into perhaps a little bit of extra compensation when they might need it if tuition's coming due. But also as an incentive to not burn those hours as soon as they come on board.
Yes.
So I think it will have some good overall positive effects for our workforce.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you for
bet.
the explanation.
You bet.
Motions?
Yeah, with that, if nobody has anything else, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, Mayor Pro Tem, to consider a resolution approving the new revised personal policies, City Kyle paid parental leave and education vacation sick buyback program.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tobias, second by Councilmember Dr. Laura Lee Harris. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. 7. Consider impossible action number 12. Item number 12, consider approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 53 of the zoning of Code of Ordinance, rezoning approximately 45.3 acres of land from RS Retail Services to PUD Planned Unit Development, approximately 29.9 acres of RS and approximately 15.4 acres RS33 apartments for property located at 22675 IH35 in Hays County, Texas, Kyle Retail Office LLC. Do we need to bring up others with that?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, we'd like to bring items 13 and 14 up as well. We'll discuss all three and then ask you to vote separately on those items.
Amy, do you need me to read those out as well? 13 and 14?
Yeah, you can read them out.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, consent agenda item 13, consider approval of the development agreement for Project Two-Step between the City of Kyle, Texas and Kyle Retail Office LLC, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement. Consent agenda item number 14, consider possible action item, consider approval of the Chapter 380 agreement with Kyle Retail Offices LLC, Project Two-Step, in the amount of $14,856,100 for the construction of an urban-style mixed-use project located at 22675 IH35.
Yes, thank you, Council. Tonight, we'll be discussing all three items for you, going over them as one project, just as our typical fashion. A little different tonight on the presentation. I will be covering the second reading of the PUD, specifically the changes that were done from the last reading and the development agreement, and then I'm going to turn that over to Victoria Vargas, our Economic Development Coordinator, to discuss the 380. I think between the two of us, we should hopefully be able to answer all of y'all's questions. So. Again, this is the second reading of the PUD agreement. This is going to allow a combination of commercial office. Again, you have the DA and the 380 before you tonight for consideration as well. Just a little background, P&Z held a public hearing on May 14th, recommended approval. Council did consider the first reading on May 22nd. That was approved, or the vote did not pass due to a 3-3 tie. That was reconsidered on June 4th, so that's how we got here tonight on June 18th. Again, there were several discussions or concerns on the June 4th meeting that you guys had regarding this. So the developer did make a couple of changes to the PUD to hopefully satisfy some of you all's concerns. So the quick summary of changes was the PUD required the parking garage to be constructed prior to the multifamily project. So I think the first to go around, they were saying you could have the retail or the garage. This is going to require that garage first. Obviously, if a garage is being constructed, retail has to be constructed to support that. So this is going to ensure that the parking garage and retail is done prior to any commercial or multifamily coming online. The second big issue was the water feature. There was a lot of discussion about water and water usage, whether that was going to be potable or not. So what they've done is they added some regulations to hopefully maintain this amenity for the community without negatively affecting our city's water supply. The first one, they said, the first subject is it will only be used, be filled with condensate or stormwater when available. It may be filled with potable water subject to certain conditions. So those conditions are going to be the city would have to receive its RWA water before that pond could be filled. We'd have to be in a stage 1 or 2 drought. We couldn't be in a higher stage. And then if it is filled, it needs to be maintained at a constant level so that there's no waste there. Again, that can be supplemented with rainwater collection and things like that. So hopefully that satisfies some of the water usage concerns that you guys had. So now I'm going to those were the only 2 changes, so I'm going to jump into the development agreement. We touched on it a little bit. It's going to cover building materials and development standards, utility capacity, upgrades, and maintenance responsibility. It's also going to cover TxDOT improvements to I-35, East FM 150, and Hill Street, as well as require PEC and telecoms to be modified along I-35 to kind of clear up that visual corridor. Building materials are going to go to 60% masonry, stone, or stucco, 40% shall be brick, and then 20% may be stucco. There's always combinations of glazing, windows, other things. Again, it'll cover setbacks, access, all of the things that the development would need to kind of operate as one facility. Utility capacity upgrades, maintenance responsibilities are a big issue because some of these utilities will be on private property, so that if there is any damage due to tenants or guests, that's going to be covered by the property owner and not the city. The city will perform the repairs, but ultimately that cost is borne by the landowner. It will reserve 525 LUEs to serve the property. This is in line with our wastewater model that we've had for a couple of years now. It will allow realignments of some sewer to serve the capacity, and then allows, again, private infrastructure public infrastructure on private property. The development agreement, again, TxDOT covers new deceleration, acceleration lanes, additional signal that'll be mid-block on FM 150. And then the city is also looking at adding additional funds that will be proposed to you as part of the budget process for enhanced landscaping in that area to improve the environment in one of our gateway areas. Those PUD regulations that were changed as part of the PUD are also incorporated in this DA. So it's a little bit of a guarantee that those get done. Again, I'm going to jump through some of the conceptual slides. Y'all have seen these before. Again, this is water tower with electronic signage. Commercial areas, this would be on East M150. This would be conceptual design of the vibe spot. More retail. Art and murals. And then custom sign package that was included as part of this. These are your options tonight regarding the PUD on the second reading. You can approve the requested PUD, approve with modifications, or deny the requested PUD. Staff's recommendation is option 1. Before we turn it over to questions, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Victoria now to talk to the 380. So if the wizard behind the curtain can jump into that slideshow, then we'll turn it over.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Victoria Vargas, Director of Economic Development, for the record. I'm here to present the Chapter 380 agreement on this project, which is the reimbursement, the incentive agreement for this project. You know where it's located. There's some the public amenities that Jason went through earlier, but the incentive request is in order to fund these items which include the parking garage, which is the largest cost, the parkland, dog park, vibe, amphitheater, pickleball courts, and also the traffic improvements are much needed in this area, so this will go to fund that, and then some utility upgrades as well. This Chapter 380 agreement is a performance-based agreement. The developer will be granted a 50% rebate on the property and sales tax generated from the project over 20 years. This project sits in TERS number 6. It's the downtown TERS. And the 50% rebate will come not from the TERS portion, but from the general fund. So we will still have the TERS increment to work with for future projects in downtown. The Chapter 380 includes the performance timelines for each phase of development. There's 2 phases of development. Almost everything is going to be built in phase 1. So we worked really hard with the developer to deliver almost all of the amenities, the retail, the multifamily, the parking garage in phase 1. And they have to complete all of that in order to begin their 380 reimbursements. If at any point in time when they get into phase 2 and they haven't completed phase 2, then all the payments will stop until they complete their phase 2. So this ensures that the city is getting what they are paying for in this incentive. It is, the revenue back to the city is over the 20 years of this incentive is $3.5 million in sales tax generated to the city and $10 million in property tax that will be going into our TERS number 6. Our development staff support this project that's located on I-35 and within TERS number 6, and we recommend the approval of the PUD, the DA, and the 380 incentive agreement. And if Jason and I are here, if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions? Do we have any motions?
Well, I just want to address, if you don't mind, again, the traffic concerns for this area. So you said that we've gotten with TxDOT on this? Because that's the number one issue that I've been getting. I know there's the retail part and the others, but it's the infrastructure as much as a lot of the residents have been brought forward about where we're at. And again, this piece of Kyle, this piece of area of the town is very complex. It's because it's right between, it's a mixture of the city, it's right by the highway, it's right by a pond, it's also part of TxDOT, so you've got so many different factors that have to come into this. So if you could just go over one more time about the traffic itself for those who are still concerned about it and what improvements would be in that area.
Yes, so.
Because we're going to have other construction that's going to be going through there in the next year or so, so it's just a combination of that.
Yeah, so I'll speak to the improvements that are happening in this area, and then I just as everybody knows, there's also improvements around the city that are planned that may take off some congestion of this area. So it's going to be a combination of both to relieve that traffic congestion. But they are looking at decel lanes along East FM 150 and I-35. So as you're coming northbound or southbound, you're trying to go into that development, you're not slowing down the rest of the commuters that are behind you. So that's a big one. They are adding additional light. Not everybody has their own feelings on lights, but that's a pedestrian safety issue. Again, trying to get people from one side of the development to the other. It sounds maybe counterintuitive to put a light and those delays, but it also takes off vehicles off the road, going just 500 feet. So there's kind of a trade-off there. There's going to be timing changes adjusted. Some of the turn lanes going down at those lights are going to have their queuing areas enlarged so they can accommodate more stacking of cars. So those keep those out of the travel lanes as you're going. So if you're trying to go straight, you're not waiting on cars turning left. So hopefully we have some extra queuing times. There's not a lot of changes that are proposed. I know the private drive there was a concern, so that is right in, right out. Again, I think the important thing to keep in mind is that this traffic pattern across the density in this area is going to be distributed across multiple access points and not just one main one that you see as a typical residential subdivision. Again, some of the traffic that you see through there is going to be coming from all parts of town, not necessarily from this development. So as we continue with our road bond projects, we have other developments that come in with planned PUDs or requests. That's something that we look at. Are they building those additional roads? Are they making those connections so we get more of a grid system and we can disperse that traffic around the community instead of funneling it into certain areas of the town? So hopefully that answered your question, unless you have a little bit more detail, I can go into that.
No, that pretty much, it's just to reiterate again for the people who live off 150 and people who live off Post Oak and going towards Waterleaf. But then again, there's a lot of residents who do not live in our area, use that 150 to cut through 21, to go through Ulen, to go through San Marcos and so forth. So it's just right in that area where we're talking. It's just a small little section of like about 6 or 7 acres that just builds so much right there. And then you also have the Dairy Queen that's right nearby as well. So that's always been a big concern for customers that want to be able to go through there. So I know we've had a lot of talk about this. I know we've dissected this 17 probably different times, but I just wanted to feel a little bit assured about the traffic because that was one of the big issues in that area, and I'm sure there's other people that have concerns, but they may have already been addressed. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Motions?
Can we just stipulate, if possible, that any water used during construction would have to be wastewater effluent?
It's non-potable.
So right now, we're not using any potable water for construction. So they would have to be trucking that in from another location. We are looking at using wastewater effluent for construction purposes, perhaps in the next few months. I'm looking at Mike Murphy to see if that's about right. In the next few months, we'd have that available. But if that's something the council wanted to stipulate, that it be non-potable water from the city, I think we could make that happen. Then stage 3, we don't allow potable water to be used right now.
Yeah, any project within the city under construction now is trucking in their own water at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, motions?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda items 12, 13, and 14.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Miguel Zuniga that we approve items 12, 13, and 14. Second by Councilmember Dr. Laura Lee Harris. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Council.
Aye, vote.
Rizzo.
Oh,
Mayor.
sorry. 6-0. Sorry, Mayor. Didn't see you there.
Thank you. That's all right.
All right, thank you.
Robert, I just want to say thank you to the developer for being very flexible and coming back to make the changes that council requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Harris.
And I'd like to express my appreciation to Councilmember Zuniga for his very insightful questions that I know our community has about this project.
Most definitely. Thank y'all. Moving on. Agenda item 15. Amy?
Mayor Pro Tem, we'd like to consider 15, 16, and 17 together as well.
Okay. I'll read those out one by one. Agenda item 15, consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to terminate the professional services agreement with Burdett Consultants, LLC, for the feasibility study and conceptual plans for the community center project. Item 16, consider approval of an agreement with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for the design services of Kyle Sportsplex RFQ 2024-01, solicitation in the amount of $672,655 for the initial phase of work for the sports complex and associated facilities. Item 17, consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of a request for qualifications for professional design services at Lake Kensington Park. Presenter, Rosie Trulove.
It's me again. Thank you. Good evening. Here to talk about items 15, 16, and 17 on today's agenda. So, Council has identified sports tourism as a goal. We consulted with CSL to perform an economic impact analysis. And through this analysis, we've identified that there are strong Kyle market indicators. Kyle and the greater Austin area market are some of the fastest growing areas of the country with a younger, wealthier, diverse resident base. We've identified that there is limited competition for amateur sports. There is a limited inventory of existing youth and amateur sports complexes for both indoor and outdoor sports. And we're seeing positive growth in the youth sports industry. Youth and amateur sports industry is growing rapidly, and that we know that there is high demand for interest in a new sports complex. Based on interviews across a wide variety of amateur sports organizations, locally, regionally, and nationally, this has been noted, and that there is demand for multiple sports usage, that it's recommended that the proposed venue include the capacity to host multiple indoor and outdoor sports. So we have identified the Kyle Sportsplex as a brand new facility that will be located on 90 acres near FM 1626 and Jack C. Hayes Trail in Kyle. This will be funded in part with 2020 Parks bonds and in collaboration with Hayes County. And on June 8th, 2024, Council gave direction to staff to pursue an expanded sports complex for for a potential future bond election in the fall of 2024. There are 3 items on the agenda today to help further this goal, and I won't read them because the Mayor Pro Tem just did, so thank you very much for that. The first item that I want to talk about is the contract with Burdett. So back in June of 2023, Council outlined the framework for a multifunctional facility here in Kyle. On March 16th of this year, Council further discussed this project, covering usage, funding, timelines, and potential locations. On April 16th, City Council approved a professional services agreement with Burdett Consultants. But on June 8th, Council elected to move forward in a different direction and requested that staff bring forward an item to cancel the agreement that we have with Burdett. We will, though, get some value from this contract for approximately $12,000 out of the 125, I think, that we had authorized. We will be able to receive a site assessment report that will include both an on-site and desktop analysis. The on-site analysis will expand upon what has already been shared related to vegetation and live activity on the property. And the desktop analysis provides for inclusion of water line, utility easements, and transportation connectivity. The report will provide a SWOT analysis for development related to its compatibility with transportation in the area, what infrastructure currently exists and what is needed, and how water moves through the property. The impacts of development on the site and what considerations are recommended to make the development more attractive, and the challenges and benefits of developing the site will also be included. We anticipate delivery of that at the end of this week. Actually, I think I got it in my email this afternoon, but I haven't yet read it. So we won't have to pay, because of the way our contract was constructed, we won't have to pay the full value of the contract, but we will compensate Burdett for the work that they provided for this initial site assessment. So item 15 today is presented asking for authorization to cancel the contract that we have with Burdett. Item 17 is the Lake Kensington item. The City of Kyle, through our 2024 strategic plan, has set forward a goal to establish and develop award-winning parks and engaging public spaces, ensuring accessibility and enjoyment for all residents. To help further that goal, the 80-acre property at 2400 Daisy Lane has been identified as the new Lake Kensington Park. This item, item 17 on today's agenda, will authorize staff to solicit for a qualified professional services firm to design a premier park for the benefit of all Kyle residents. So if authorized to move forward, we anticipate issuing this RFQ, request for qualifications, in July or August, and would bring back award of a contract in the fall of this year. And so item 17, as presented, would direct staff to, or authorize staff to approve a resolution, would authorize staff to solicit for a professional services firm for Lake Kensington Park. The last item, sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight. I'm giving Jesse a run for his money. The last item is item 16, and this is the execution of the contract for the design of the Sportsplex. So back in February of this year, we released a design solicitation for the design services for the Kyle Sportsplex. Back in March, we received 8 responses. We had a city staff evaluation panel that was convened to review the proposals, and we shortlisted 2 firms for consideration by the Kyle Sportsplex Task Force. Those 2 firms were Mesa Design and Stantec Consulting Services. Both the city staff panel and the Kyle Sportsplex Task Force recommended awarding the contract to Stantec, and we brought that contract award to you in April of this year, and council did vote to award the contract to Stantec. In May, we had the item posted to execute the agreement with Stantec, but council opted to take no action and instead had some further consideration about the vision for the facility there. At the June 8th council meeting, council gave direction to pursue an expanded sports complex facility at the Plum Creek location with, again, funding through existing parks bonds, Hays County, and a potential November 2024 bond to be presented to voters later this fall. Stantec was asked to incorporate the work necessary to prepare for a 2024 bond election into their scope, and that is what the item you have before you today is. So we have 7 phases of work for this project. The first being visioning and feasibility. This is the additional work associated with the prep for calling a bond election this coming year that would help to identify schematics and renderings and overall programmatic design for at a very high level for presentation to the voters. Phase 2 and 3 take us into schematic design, and those are the other two elements that we are contracting with Stantec for today. Phases 4 through 7 would come once we have design, once we've reached that milestone in our work. So you can see in the schedule that's outlined on the slide in front of you, the green dots are the work that we had already anticipated with Stantec and that was scoped out as part of their larger scope of work in response to the RFQ, and we've added this initial pre-design element for preparation for a bond election this fall. Should the bond pass, we will come back and bring an amendment to this agreement to add in the schematic design for the additional facility work that could potentially be authorized by the voters this fall. And so you would see that as an amendment later on in the year. And then we would, of course, bring back an amendment for full design and construction documents. So as I said, contracting in 2 phases. We anticipate phase 1 will be completed in mid-August. That's the work associated with the bond election. Phases 2 and 3 are anticipated to take 4 to 6 months. And we will bring back that contract amendment should we need to. For the phase 1 visioning and feasibility, the price is approximately $123,000, added to the negotiated price for schematic design of $549,000 gives us a total for this action of $672,655. If passed, Stantec will commence work immediately. The scope will allow for individual council interviews as part of visioning, with presentations back at the council meetings of July 16th, August 6th, and August 20th as may be necessary. So we would offer the options of awarding the contracts as presented, and that is items 15, 16, and 17. And so I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Tobias?
All right, I'm going to go back to 16.
Okay.
We did have a concerned resident talking
Yes.
about what we would lose in the funding if we terminated. So I personally still wish we could be able to still go through and find out what the final verdict would be on what they find out. But you said they've already done some analysis already.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the contract that we signed with them, let's just put it, we're not on the hook for the entire amount, is what you're saying?
That is correct. We would, and we have had conversations with Burdett, and I will say they have been an absolutely stellar partner for the city of Kyle, and we look forward to working with them in the future should that opportunity come up. They have this site assessment report as a deliverable that was already anticipated in the contract that we had with them in the scope that we approved, and so that will be turned over to us, or has been turned over to us, and that will be useful to us as we look at further development in those sites.
So Mayor and Council, if I could just clarify a little bit on the contract that's in front of you. For Stantec, we had been working with them on the outdoor sportsplex. This was a project that we'd already had some funding for, $14 million. $7 million of that was city bond funds and $7 million for county bond funds. And the original proposal we were looking at was having Stantec help us design all of those facilities as part of that. So that's the majority of these dollars for a project that's already funded and not contingent upon a bond election. The additional amount, this 123 that we have, is for the new facility that we've been talking about as part of the bond package. So the 123 is to take us over the next month or so and to give us some kinds of renderings and facility information, site planning work, things like that. That would be at risk if the bond package were to fail. Those are the dollars that we will have spent on that. But the other dollars it's a funded project and it's moving forward, if that makes sense. I just want to make sure there's two different pieces to this. One we were doing before
One we were
had
doing
formed a
with
task
the-
force, and then this is just an additional element to it. We've amended it to add the 123,000.
So to reiterate, to give history on all of this, because we're talking about sportsplex and parks and all that. So the original 2020 bond was half and half county, half city, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
So we have Stantec already working on that right now, correct?
Well, that's what
The-
this
the-
contract would do. We've done the RFQ for it. We had
Okay.
selected Stantec, and given all the various discussions, we had put that contract on hold until we had a better idea of where the council wanted to go with that. But now we're bringing that forward. But that is for that project, that 500,000. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then going back to Burnett again, they've already kind of did some analysis to
Yes.
see where we're at. Because that was my whole drive on that, was to see how we have two lots of land that one we're about ready to own, the other one we've had for several years, to see what is feasible to be built, if there's anything that could be built in the future, seeing the infrastructure itself, the utilities can run through, water and so forth. Because at least we can have an idea moving forward.
Absolutely.
If there's projects that come down years from now, we can at least have something versus just, we just kind of closed out on a contract. At least we got something we can show on that, correct?
And that is the site assessment report that you
Site
see
assessment,
on
yeah.
this, on the
Okay.
projector right now.
Okay.
Yeah, can I jump in now too?
Councilmember
I yield.
Tobias, you
I
yield?
yield.
Okay.
I yield.
Councilmember Zuniga?
Yeah, so just on item 16, I know we're going to vote on these separately, because I have questions about 15 and 17 as well. But 16, Brian, would it be possible to get an update on the sportsplex from the task force? Since they've met, looked at some areas, and I think now y'all have seen some other stuff in Carville?
Sure, I mean, we could ask the
Just so that
task.
we're all on the same page about what was already seen, designed, and thought of.
Well, nothing's been designed
Mhm.
for that. The task force met, we did an RFQ, they evaluated the qualifications of the firms that were submitted, and they're recommending Stantec to do that work for us, to go through the design process. So that's where the task force had left that issue. I think now that, we did have the trip and looked at some indoor facilities and some other things, I believe that will be part of this other phase of the project, that other $123,000 of how to design the indoor facilities.
Okay.
And then to complement the outdoor amenities that we were looking at.
But the earlier first task force, when it was set up, there was a trip that was taken. I think something, Sportsplex was looked at, or was it soccer fields?
We did, yes, sir. The
Right.
task force did go look at some other outdoor facilities. Yes, sir, we did look at some of those. And so some of that learning went back, and then it helped us kind of form, what type of company, their vision, what are we looking for in terms of the company that would bring forward to help us do the design. But that's not been designed. I just want to be clear, this is what that process is for.
And so, how much water do you think we would be needing for this Sportsplex and for because I'm so concerned that we're in a water stage 3 right now. And,
I can't answer that because it depends on what we're going to build. I think part of it will be, we're looking at having the purple pipe go into that area. We believe it can be served by the purple pipe. That project is available there. We also may have some, and this will be subject to a lot of other discussions, but the fields that we put in could have a combination of artificial turf and natural grass. I think there's many discussions that we need to have on that with the task force and then the council as a whole to see what makes sense. But I think through that process, we can come back with some options that make sense. I think there's, even some of the hotter climates, they do have some artificial turf that is used. You may be able to shade some of those areas as some of the things that we've talked about doing as well. But I don't know the answers to those right now. But that will be part of that process, is to look at it.
So like during the design, we'll be able to have an estimate of the water use needed?
I think we could certainly
Yes.
have a maintenance cost for it, and some of the fields that we have are in a drainage detention basin area, and one of the things that we've seen is you can have underground, and I'm probably the last person to be able to talk about this, but some of the underground facilities that can collect that stormwater and rainwater and then use it for irrigation purposes. So there are examples of how to do that, and we've seen some of those on the facilities we visited.
And Brian, I was going to say that we have Mark Maldonado with Stantec that might have a better way to answer that, but the city manager is absolutely correct. We have not done, all this is authorizing us to execute the agreement that will help us to figure out the answers to those questions.
Yeah, just because I know the question we're going to get from residents is the amount of water that we're going to need for the sportsplex.
And part of the scope of work for our design team will be to do a lot of community engagement and to hear from the residents about what are the types of amenities we're looking to incorporate into the facility. So we'll be able to receive that feedback as well.
And ice hockey has been removed, right, from consideration?
I don't know if it's 100% been removed. I think it's
I think that'll be part of the discussion that
Yeah.
the council goes through, is what all elements do you want to include in there?
Yep.
So this vote does not approve ice hockey rinks?
No, no, sir. This is to authorize a firm to begin that conceptual design process and to start looking at what's possible out there and what can be brought forward.
That's all the questions I had, Mayor Pro Tem, about this.
And just so you're clear, we're bringing up 15, 16, 17. You had said that we're doing one at a time, but we're actually doing all three at one vote.
Okay, so the Lake Kensington,
Is there, you want to
Mike,
talk
I had a
about?
question about that.
Okay,
yeah.
let's go and bring it forward.
So in the Lake Kensington, because I look at the area, I look at, is Daisy the road that leads to Lake Kensington? Is Daisy the street?
I
I'm
understood.
getting a will, yes, right?
Yep.
Yes.
He says yes.
So I'm concerned about like the traffic patterns there as well and leading into Lake Kensington, the amount of traffic from the neighborhoods and the backups and how we don't have good access into Lake Kensington. So what kind of infrastructure of roads and for public safety would we need? Because that's a congested park area, and it's for the
So-
residents that are listening that, you know, are going to be upset about traffic. I want to make that clear here that Lake Kensington, the Daisy, is a small road to get to Lake Kensington with only one way into the area.
So the item today is to authorize staff to issue a solicitation for design services. So understanding that traffic concerns and congestion is an area that we want to make sure that we're evaluating as part of the qualifications for the design team, we can incorporate that aspect into the solicitation for the design team. But we won't be having conversations about potential solutions on that until after we have a design team selected for that. So months from now.
That's the question I had, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I just want to remind you that the county did the improvements to Daisy, so they've been wind up pretty good, so.
But that's the other part, that's by the Chapel Middle School part.
Yeah, so it comes all the way down, but moving forward, we're also gonna have Go Forth, well, if we name it Go Forth, Go Forth Road coming in that allow us to get more traffic in there, just to address some of your traffic concerns.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
the point
I
I'm
was just trying to
making,
help.
right?
No, I was just trying to help.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yeah.
is where they always get brought up, but we never bring them up, like in other parts of our city.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember. All right, any motions, any more conversation?
Mayor Pro Tem, if I could, I'd recommend that these items be considered separately because there
Okay.
could be different,
So you
different
just want to
positions.
bring them up together?
Yeah, there's
and
three
then-
separate votes. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sounds good.
Thank
So,
you.
any
Mayor Pro Tem,
motions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 15, consider resolution authorizing city manager to terminate the professional service agreement with Burdick Consultants.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Heiser, second by Councilmember Harris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All those opposed, say nay.
Wait.
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Motion
Doesn't count
passes 5-1.
No, I said nay.
Oh, is it 2 nays?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. 4-2.
4-2.
All
Mayor Pro
right.
Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 16, consider approval of an agreement with Stan Tech Consulting Service for the design service of Kyle Sportsplex RFQ.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Heiser that we approve agenda item number 16, second by Dr. Harris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Oh, could you wait, please? All those in,
So I wasn't know you were counting.
okay, all those against, I'm sorry, you threw me off. Nay. All right, sounds good. Did we just have one nay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
You're
5-1.
distracting everyone. They can't do
Yeah,
their votes.
all right, sounds good. Here we go.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 17, consider a resolution authorizing the issuance of an RFQ for professional design service at Lake Kensington Park.
We have a motion by Council. Got me now. My bad.
Turn his
My
mic
bad.
off.
Yeah, let's turn
Turn off his mic.
Okay. Councilmember, we got a motion to approve agenda item 17 by Councilmember Heiser. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay. Motion passes 5-1. All right. Item number 18, consider approval of one-year contract with Beckerstaff Health Delgado Acosta LLP for redistricting services of the city council districts in the amount of $30,000. I'm presenting Rosie Truelove. Go.
It's me again. Good evening. We're here for an item. The city currently has 3 single-member council districts, and due to significant population growth over the last several years, the current district boundaries may need to be reevaluated and redrawn. The services provided in this contract will assist in collecting data, assessing current districts in proportion to the current population, and provide guidance to council and staff on whether districts should be redrawn. On April 16th, council directed the city manager to hire a consultant to analyze existing city council district boundaries, which is what's bringing us here today. What we anticipate is a tentative project schedule for this item. It would include an initial assessment, development and adoption of criteria for redistricting, developing redistricting plans, advising the city regarding the merits of the plans, public input, deliberation, and adoption of a final plan, post-project support and litigation. We estimate the time to completion would be 12 months after contract execution. There are 2 options in front of you today. The first is to approve the contract in the amount of $30,000 with Bickerstaff Heath Delgado Acosta LLP, or option number 2 to not approve, and staff recommends that you do approve the contract. And I'm available to answer any questions with the support of City Attorney Amy Alcorn-Reed.
Councilmember Harris?
Will their evaluation also include whether or not we should have an additional single-member district?
No, that's going to be a charter commission review discussion.
Okay, that's charter. Okay, thank you.
What was your question?
Whether it will include, whether we need to add another single-member district. Thank you. Answer my question.
Any more questions? Councilmember Tobias?
Okay, how often are these redistricting conversations brought up?
Typically, cities redistrict with the census every 10 years.
Okay, when was the last time this was done?
2011.
Okay.
Past due.
It's past due in a sense to see where our districts are at.
So
Especially with the growth of the community.
And just as a note, the contract says it's 30,000. It's up to 30,000. So if Bickerstaff did the initial assessment and said, actually, we're still in balance, we wouldn't then continue that process, unless we wanted to.
Okay, where's Bickerstaff Health Delgado Costa located? Where the original firms at?
I believe the office, or the portion of the office we're using is in Austin. Bickerstaff Heath Delgado and Acosta is the most well-known firm to do this work. I actually looked into what other cities in Texas use, and the vast majority of them use Bickerstaff for this work.
Okay, so in hindsight, we're behind on the curve on this along with census and everything else with our growth.
My understanding is we did some evaluation in 2011 and determined that our districts were more or less in line at the time, but we've had a lot of growth since then, and so we're not sure that that's still true.
Okay, so it's more, not so much more representation, is it just more, I guess that's what we're looking at, right?
The idea is when you have 3 single-member districts, you want them to have as close to possible the same population, so that you each get, approximately equal representation. Each resident gets approximately equal representation on the council.
Okay. I'm just questioning because we did a survey and it said District 6 was 80%, well satisfied. So, but I'm good.
So,
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just a question for Amy. Amy, so to give me some clarity on is it council's decision if they would like to go into all single-member districts, single-member?
That would require a charter
The
amendment.
public's decision through a charter change?
Right, that would require a charter amendment. So I know we've talked about coming back, I think, toward the start of next year with the Charter Review Commission so that they can do their analysis of changes that we need in the charter. That would be something that they could suggest if they wanted to. Some cities do that. Some have no single-member districts. Some have a mix like we do. So it's really something that the Charter Review Commission could recommend, and then council could decide whether or not to put on the ballot, and then the voters could vote.
So they can recommend one additional single member or all single member districts?
Or they could recommend leaving it the same, and then council can vote. Even if the Charter Review Commission recommended something, council doesn't necessarily have to adopt that recommendation. Council will ultimately decide what goes on the ballot out of the Charter Review Commission.
So I guess,
Thank you, Amy.
I guess on that end, if you don't mind if I just add more, I guess some of the conflicts that I guess you may have seen before was the at-large because of the residency of where some at-large may live, where, let's say, the majority of, at one time, all the at-large in districts were specific parts of town. And then I guess it's looking at all of that as a whole, to where if we have to make it a charter amendment to where if somebody was to be at-large, they would have to live in a specific area of town, or is it just the
No.
equal representation, or is it just
At-large is typically citywide.
citywide?
That's generally how it's done. I'm not aware of anyone putting geographic limitations on an at-large. They do put them on single-member districts.
Okay.
So how can we end up with some sort of, I guess, structure where it's fair to the at-large member? Because it's like more of an advantage to the district council member.
This isn't on the
It's
agenda.
not on the
Can we
agenda.
talk about this?
No, we're getting a little off.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit off.
It
so I
just
think
feels like a lot more
Brandon-
work for the at-large member.
Yeah, but we can bring this up at a different time.
And these are things that we could discuss, when we bring our consultant
It's
on.
a lot more work.
There's no reason our
Guys.
consultant couldn't give us some information regarding what other cities do as we're considering our charter review.
So- Sorry, I had to bring us back in, but yeah, definitely. Any
Thank you,
more
Mayor.
discussion?
That's all I had.
Councilmember Heiser?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve agenda item 18, consider approval of a one-year contract with Bickerstaff, Heath Delgado Acosta LLP for redistricting services.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heiser. Do we have a second to approve agenda item 18?
Second, due to the fact that it's way overdue. That's the only
Yeah.
reason why I'm.
Second by Councilmember Tobias. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Is Mayor still there? All right,
Yeah, he
6-0.
had his hand up.
6-0, yeah. All right, 6-0. All right, agenda item number 19, consider approval of one-year extension for both the Community Garden and Trails Committees. Presenter, Dr. Laura Lee Harris, Councilmember.
Yes.
And Mayor Heiser.
I'd like to present an idea that we extend both of these committees that have now both served for 1 year. The projects that they have been working on have progressed dramatically during the year these committees have been working, but their work is not done. And I think Josh Keller, in his testimony earlier, was very eloquent in saying how much that they have to do. And I can speak on the behalf of the Garden Committee in that the garden's not up and running quite yet. They've made great progress on how it's structured, what's going to be there, what the policies are. But then we've got a whole garden to structure the running of. which does not have to be left entirely to city staff and in perhaps recruiting volunteers. So we would work with both of these committees on their scope of work as Josh said, their scope of work for trails was very narrow, and they did not get to look at where other trails, we've got a trails plan that can certainly be enhanced and worked on through this committee. And I would like to see both of these committees extended for another year.
Councilor Heiser? Oh, Mayor?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by the mayor, second by Councilor Heiser. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, say nay. All, motion passes 6-0. All right, cool. We're good. Motion to, what do you call it? Adjourn, sorry.
Second.
All right, so moved. We are adjourned.